has been provided in accordance with section 3D of chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Sunshine Law. Roll call, please.
Palmer. Jose Reyes.
Here.
Judy Nelson.
Here.
Grace Ann Kelly.
Here.
Ryan Messinger.
Here.
Jose Maderos.
Here.
Philip Bellin.
Here.
Brad Nelson.
Here.
Ken Shalay.
Here.
Jeff Coletti.
Here.
Steve DiLorenzo.
Here.
Daniel McDonald.
Here. Please rise to the front. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to open to the public for general comments about agenda only items. So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Is there any other 424 Charlestown Road? A few things. The new business, the interview and the open position for the attorney, I'm assuming they're the same topic. And can you, when you get to that item, can you, or I don't remember what was happening with Kara and if she was gonna come on board, I don't remember, but if you could kind of let the public know kind of what's going on with the attorney.
Okay.
And then also, can you, if there is executive session, can you move that to after, at the end, so we can hear the reports of the board and, you know, any other public comments if we might have? If you have executive session, if there isn't, then it doesn't matter, but.
I mean, we always do executive session at the end anyway, but I'm not, I have no plans right now to go into executive.
Okay, well, if you do, can you push it to the back so that we can leave? Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Rosemary, is that the?
Yeah, the mouse.
Is that the mouse?
I think it's the,
Need a motion to close?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first we have an interview with Scott Wilhelm. To explain what's going on. We had two RFQs that were submitted. One was Kara Krasinski and the other was Scott Wilhelm. So we give everybody any chance here to be, for everybody to be heard. So Scott is gracious to come in for kind of a question and answer session and an interview with the board, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So, just introduce yourself, give us a high 1 mile view.
Sure. Sure. My name is Scott Wilhelm and I'm with my own firm in Phillipsburg, right by Warren Hospital. I know Kara for a number of years. I didn't realize she was your attorney in the past. She's a very nice woman, and a very competent lawyer. For the last 4 years, I've been the land use board attorney. This is a land use board, right? This is not a planning. Yeah. The land use board attorney in Phillipsburg, and I'll find out if I get reappointed later this week, because they have a new regime there. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. As you might imagine, being land use attorney in Phillipsburg, you have quite a bit to deal with. There's a lot going on with warehouses and other things like that. So I certainly think that I'm more than qualified to be able to handle anything in Bethlehem Township. I view my function as just properly giving advice to the board, writing the resolutions and making sure that things are done, you know, appropriately. I think you have to be pretty well, pretty well versed in the municipal land use law and the Open Public Meetings Act. And as long as you are and you use some common sense, you'll be fine. So I don't do a lot privately, land use. I mean, I do a lot of real estate, but not privately, because not too many people are doing a whole lot. They do a lot of them just do these variances on their own, or you've got developers. And in Phillipsburg, I've been conflicted on a number of things where I have been approached. But I've been an attorney for 28 years. There's 6 attorneys in my office. We'll have a 7th very soon, so I have the ability to have the backup that's necessary for me, which is very important. But again, for the last 4 years being in Phillipsburg, I think, again, pretty much everything's been thrown at me. I'm the type of attorney who, gives out my cell phone. I ask people, tell them that they can call me if they have a question, and I would do that to people on this board, but ask them just to respect it. Don't call me Saturday night just for the heck of it, and make sure it's kind of important. But I think that's my job, is to be available. And I have had, like in Phillipsburg, individual members call me up and say, hey, this issue's coming up. Do you think I should participate? Do I have any concerns? Are there any conflicts here? And I provide that too. But again, my job also is to look out for the interest of the board, to make sure the board's doing the right thing. And making sure you all of you probably have been on this board for a long time. I have no idea, but lots of times you'll get people from the public and sometimes members who have a lot of questions of the land use board, and the land use board has very limited jurisdiction. And so you have to make sure that a board is following the limited jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction derives from the municipal land use law and the cases that come from it, and you only can do, certain things. And a lot of times you'll have people from the audience come out and start asking you questions. And I just remind the chairman, these are questions that are most likely maybe appropriate for the township committee or something like that. But again, drafting the ordinances, reviewing what the engineers put together. I'm sure you rely heavily on the engineer, as most land use boards do. But I'm very good at taking out what the engineer has put in there, conditions of approvals, making sure they're in the resolutions. I think that's my most important job, is make sure the resolution reflects your decision. Because we've got to make sure it's what you wanted, and we've got to make sure that it complies with the law, and we've got to make sure if there's an appeal, the proper record's been made. But be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
So you understand that we're currently in litigation with an applicant that we turned down, just one of his, what he was looking for. And Kara's been handling that up to this point. If we were to hire you, how would we not pay for you to get up to speed and things like that?
Well, I guess you could do a couple of things. One is you could hire me as your regular counsel. You can hire her as special counsel to continue with that, which is probably the most prudent thing to do, because you're not paying me to catch up. And because she's got the knowledge of the case, that would be my recommendation to you. I don't know if you have insurance. Phillipsburg has insurance, so when they get in litigation, often their insurance will pick it up. So sometimes you can refer to your carrier and see if they'll cover you if she's doing a competent job.
A lot of your experience here seems to be criminal. At least the land use is just Phillipsburg, and that's basically 3 years of experience.
4 years as the land use board attorney. I do a lot of real estate, and I've done this, do some land use privately for people. I've been an attorney for 27 years. I've tried cases to juries, civil and criminal. I'm in municipal court all the time. I'm in Superior Court all the time. I'm in Pennsylvania all the time. I mean, you'll be hard pressed to find in this area anybody who's in court as much as me. And I've got 4 years experience in Phillipsburg. It's a ton of work there. I'm just an experienced lawyer.
And it would be you who would be sitting here on our board.
It would be, yeah. I might have somebody do some backup work, to help me if I had some research, but no, I would be the attorney.
So your opening statement, you kind of alluded to Phillipsburg versus us, and we tend not to be, sometimes we're busy and most of the time we're not. Often we have no need for an attorney at various meetings, due to lack of agenda items. From the beginning, we want to make you aware of this. Although we have 2 scheduled meetings every month, we don't necessarily need the attorney here, twice every month. Is that something that?
That's not,
Okay.
that's not a problem with me. That's fine. I'm surprised to hear you have 2 meetings a month. That's a lot. But no, if you don't need me, don't pay me. I understand that completely.
Okay.
Sure.
Can you provide examples of successful strategies you've employed to expedite and, or streamline the land use approval process without compromising thorough review? We basically try to keep the cost down best we can for our residents.
For your applicants,
And so the applicants, which are actually our residents, is there anything that you've done in the past with any other towns to try to keep those costs in check?
I think the most important thing is communicating with the engineer. If you have a good engineer who's giving you your technical review, if you're doing I assume your engineer does your completeness first, I'll take that completeness letter and start outlining my resolution. I'm going on the assumption that an application is going to be granted. I know they're not always, but if you start with that, I'll take that completeness and start outlining my argument or my resolution. And then I will, of course, look at the technical letter, which should come before the meeting, the hearing. And again, I'll look at those things. What do we have here? Do we have, permanent waivers, temporary waivers, what variances, what are we looking at? And again, have an outline ready to go so that I can ask intelligent questions. And then I bring my computer and take notes. I don't rely, I know a lot of land use attorneys rely on the board secretaries, and I don't think that's really a good idea. I take copious notes while I'm doing it, and then I can take that into my resolution, because with all due respect to the board secretary, he or she is doing a lot of things. They might have misheard something. They may not have an understanding of a legal concept. So I take my notes and then I can like cut and paste and start putting them in the resolution. So I think I've found myself to be very efficient in that way. I'm not interested in, I'm not interested in churning a file to make money, because quite frankly, this rate is lower than a rate I get in the private market. A government rate is much lower than the private market rate. But again, I think I'm a very good lawyer, and I think I bring good experience to you, and I enjoy the work. So, but I'm not interested at a lower rate and spending more time. I'd rather do it on a different file or have a much higher rate.
Yeah, I see you with the town of Phillipsburg Land Use Board. What do they need? What kind of ordinance or cases, if I may, do they have, and how would that relate to a smaller township like ourselves?
So they only meet once a month. That's why I said I was surprised if you meet twice a month. The meetings never cancel because there's always something going on. They have a lot of redevelopment going on right now. So they'll have the township council designate an area, potentially need a redevelopment, refer it to the land use board, and then we go through that process. Again, if you have a good planner as well as a good engineer, that's going to go smoothly. But there's warehouse development. There's a lot of development on Route 22. If you've seen the fast food places going in, quick checks going in lieu of the bowling alley and things like that. There's also a lot of just variances, people trying to turn, a house into apartments or subdivisions, lot line adjustments. There's a lot going on there. So I think I've dealt with everything, from a little lot line adjustment to warehouses. So I think anything that would be here, is comparable. I don't know if you have any industrial parks. I don't think you do. So, I would be surprised if there's something here that would cause me concern. And if it did, you immediately just do the research. So.
I'm just curious, what's driving your interest in this particular? You seem to have a good private practice, thriving private practice. You're busy with Phillipsburg, presumably they'll bring you back. Why? What's your interest in coming here?
I'm interested in continuing to do this work, but I won't guarantee that I'm coming back because it's a new regime and it's very political there. It's really a lot of BS goes on there in the politics. So I'm not positive that I will be going back, and I'd like to just continue to do this work. But yeah.
Thank you.
So I see that you're on the township committee in Holland,
I am,
and you're also on the planning board. So
it's a LU, land use board.
right.
Yep.
So is Holland in the Highlands?
It is.
Completely?
Yeah, almost completely. I would say almost.
So they have a little planning area.
Yeah.
What did you guys do with your planning area? Did you apply the preservation rules to your planning?
I've been on, I can tell you right now, in Holland, I'm starting my 8th year on the township committee. And we have about this much development going on.
Right.
So, which is good. It's a residential or rural area. I can't recall anything coming up. So ask the question again. What do we do for
What did
preservation?
you do with your planning area? I assume that you guys had some planning area.
Yeah. What do you mean?
So did you apply so what we chose to do was, to apply the preservation rules,
More stringent regulations.
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, to the planning area.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't recall exactly. That's the honest answer. I don't recall exactly.
Right.
But yeah, Holland's very, very quiet.
Yeah.
It's nice. Well,
Any other questions?
the good thing about being on the planning board there is I'm not the engineer, I'm not the attorney, so I can just throw in my 2 cents.
Be the
and just-
resident.
Yeah, exactly, speak, so. But. And Phillipsburg has nothing to do with the Highlands.
Yeah.
So,
No other questions? All right, thank you very much.
thank you, I appreciate the time and consideration.
Thank you. So the other, actually, everybody has Kara's resume. But we have experience with her, that's actually not in here because they all know that she is, or actually works with us. So with that, we can discuss it. We need a nomination for one or the other or both. If we have a nomination for both, first and a second, then we will discuss it, we can openly discuss it at that point, and we can pass papers out and vote for it. We can vote for the attorney, and Monica will count up the votes. That's how we choose. Okay.
Well, I'll nominate Scott Will just so that we have the discussion. I would like the discussion though.
I'll nominate Kara.
I'll second. Second, Harris first and second, and you said Scott, I need a second for Scott.
I'll second.
Yeah. First and second. Very open discussion about both of them, either of them. Who wants to start?
I mean, I have nothing against Scott, and I actually think if we didn't have Kara, he would be a great attorney, one, because of his, more so because of his experience in Holland Township. The reason why I would like to see Kara is because we still will need to retain her, so we might as well continue the processes that have been going on. You know, we've got multiple things in queue with Kara that we've been working on. If she didn't want to be here, it's a no-brainer. But the fact that we are basically working with her now on so many different things, and the fact that we are in litigation, it just seems natural that she stick around and keep running the course. Two, I think she does a great job. You know, you can't complain about anything I've seen her do.
Who's next? Everyone's gonna have a chance to speak here, so no one's getting out, so you wanna be early or last, doesn't matter.
Well, Scott is very capable. If I had any reservations about Kara or any, criticisms, you know, he would be one of the ones that I would consider to be, attorney. right now, even putting the litigation that we have aside, right now, it seems, in my opinion, it's a nice fit, the attorney we have now. Not that he wouldn't be a good attorney for us, and he wouldn't, develop into a nice fit or whatever. But if we have, my thing is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. That's been my role in business and, throughout life. Right now, like I said, litigation even aside from that, but then as a ending to that, yes, he was very, upfront about saying, having Kara come on as the attorney for any litigation. But we don't need to even spend that along with an attorney if we don't have to. If there was something that was really critical with her, my feelings, my personal feeling, then definitely consider, but, I'm favoring Kara in this.
Well, I kind of agree with what, Christiane just said. Obviously, Kara, litigation and so forth, I think it makes sense to stick with her, but she's been here now, she's seen us go through the pet ordinance, the fence ordinance, she's been here long enough now that she has the background on the town. She's heard the residents, she understands what's important to them. If we move to a different attorney, even though he may be just as talented, kind of like Christiane said, if it's not broken, why do something else? Like, she's comfortable with this town, she's seen what's been happening here for years now, 3, 4, 5 years, that she's been our attorney, and I don't see a reason to make that change unless you.
And what would be the betterment of it?
Right.
To do that? I mean, if there was something, if someone could tell me then that it'd be better that we choose, I don't see that myself, so, but if somebody else has something to volunteer about it, then, I'm all ears.
I think for Radney's experience, she's been on our board longer than he's been.
That's the thing that kind of caught my eye. The fact that he seems like a very talented attorney, he's been practicing law for a long time, but he really only has 4 years of land use experience, and that experience is in Phillipsburg, which is a very different community than ours. So it's not, and it's not, again, not to say that there isn't parallels there, but it's not a perfect sort of experience match. And again, back to kind of everything else said before, like between Kara's experience being here, and the job that she's done has been very good. And as Christiane just said, like, what's the benefit of the change? So I think that's the part that I struggle with, not that he would be a bad attorney at all. I just don't know that it's, I don't know that it puts us in a better position, as a board to make a change.
I agree with previous speakers here. Also, the fact that she's become very familiar with the Highlands and how they work and how we interact. That's very important. Everything we do is affected by them. So the fact that she's so familiar and has shown her experience in that area, that's something I have. Again, the experience I saw here and everything else. But I feel like Grace does that. It's not broken. Why fix it?
I'm kind of in agreement with the group consensus. I mean, I don't see, I certainly think he's qualified. But I think that the benefit actually exists in keeping Kara because of the fact that she has the experience with the Highlands, with the ongoing litigation. I think that's really, it goes back, like you said, if it's not broken, there's not any indication that, to me, that we needed a change. So.
I'd say we stick with Karen just for the reason we shouldn't be switching in the middle of things. And it's too bad this guy didn't come in years ago when we put the attorneys. I particularly think they would hire him. So I think Karen does a fine job without the switching.
Echo the same thing, just qualified guy, bad timing. I think it's. not the right guy. It's too much other stuff going on. And that's it.
So, I mean, I think he's a very qualified attorney. I think that, the one thing that I would think that might be good if we brought him in and kept Kara on the litigation is that we'd also get another set of eyes, another attorney to kind of look at that and kind of be a sounding board for her as well, on that case. So, you know, even though he wouldn't be on the case, we might be getting two for the price of one. And price-wise, he's cheaper than Kara at this point. Kara, I think, has done a great job. I have no complaints about her. The only thing that I wish is that she was here more often rather than on Zoom, because on Zoom, I don't see the benefit to her on Zoom. So, I mean, and I'm digging for something to complain about with her. And so I'm just trying to kind of give, you know, a balanced, you know, good points and bad points for both. I think that his land use experience is lacking for sure. I don't know that with an attorney who's been practicing for 28 years, that land use is a real difficult thing for any attorney. Land use is pretty easy actually. So I mean, you know, that I'm fine with Kara, and but at the same time, I'm glad that we looked at
It's
something.
healthy,
Yeah.
it's healthy to
Yeah.
see other people.
Very-
I don't know how qualified he is actually. When you asked him about the preservation area,
Yeah.
he couldn't answer the question. That disqualified it for me. So, and he's been on that township committee for 8 years, you know, which actually dwarfs me on our township committee, so. And the planning board, I don't know how long he's been on their planning board,
Yeah, I don't know how long it
but that was, I was kind of with you, Jose, up until that point, but then, yeah,
Yes,
and
I-
also Phillipsburg's very pro warehouse. So I don't know,
Yeah, but that's a government, not the particularly the attorney. The other thing is
Well,
that,
yeah.
I mean, he wasn't on his township committee, when all the Highlands bill went through. That's when we dealt with our planning area going into so that is something,
Yeah.
I would be surprised that as, you know, I agree with you that he should have known that, which is why I asked it, but.
But anyway, that's all. I mean, you know, that was it. Otherwise, yes, he seems like a very competent attorney in the criminal defense field or whatever he was working in. I just didn't know about land use and warehouses. And he seemed to not want to get involved in whatever, and I know the politics. I mean, I work in Phillipsburg, so I know the politics of Phillipsburg. So, okay.
It's pretty unanimous, so I don't think we have to go by ballot.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, sent the email last week to everybody, if it was a unanimous concern or a straightforward concern where there was no question, then I wouldn't have had him come in today. It takes, you know, an attorney, his time and everything else, so I didn't want to necessarily waste that, so he did get some good questions tonight. You know, we exposed him to our town, we saw what else is out there as far as, you know, legal help. And not understanding Highlands concerned me, exactly what you just said. You know, bring up your point as far as having the second attorney, we do have a township attorney that we, you know, Kara has worked with. So we do have a second attorney to, you know, for Kara to sound off with. My concern naturally would be if we went into that situation, he's gonna be billing us also in addition to Kara, because there's gonna be some crossover there. You know, there's gonna be time. So with as much money as has been spent as far as any of that specific litigation, it's, you know, it's a concern.
He'd probably be great, not horrible.
Yeah, oh, it's, you know, he's got a nice resume and he's
Absolutely.
a very well-spoken individual.
Absolutely.
I
And
did,
knowledgeable.
I did like the fact that, you know, he didn't want to take everything on, so the, you know, his opening comment about keeping Kara, you know, he didn't say, well, I'm gonna bill us, bill 80 hours, to bring me up to speed. So, there was, I think he would work, well as far as, cost, and yes, he is $10 an hour cheaper. But as I've learned, through all these years of seeing all of our professionals' bills, all you have to do is add and subtract 10 minutes at a time. And, sometimes I question, and I do question some engineers' bills and some planners' bills, and, what do you mean 8 hours for, looking at how somebody wrote their name? That's not, it's a little far fetched, I do that stuff, so.
That's always been a problem.
It's always,
I started way back when.
yeah, I mean, we've had, our attorney, that we had prior to Kara, very, very well-spoken individual, very well respected. But I will say, whenever we did anything with this board, he billed us. So he billed us to read the agenda. Back then, Mary would call him and I would see, an invoice for 10 minutes of time to talk to planning board secretary. And so, we spent thousands of dollars. And I mean, they were all justified. It's,
Which is not uncommon for
he can,
attorneys to put
he
time.
can be justified by doing that. It's not that he's not. But I will tell you, Kara does not do that. So, there's times, Kara will bill us for an hour discussion, and there might be 2 hours there of, of either, Monica calling or, and we don't see those, all those little, nickels and dimes. And then even when she does bills, billing, I think, after all these years of seeing professionals' bills, she's very, very fair. Which means ultimately, the taxpayers are not paying. Because we have, I don't think, with the exception of, litigation, I don't think we have ever gone over our budget. And we've had the same budget for,
At least 5 years,
I don't think we've been over 10,000 for even more than that.
more than that, I can't, yeah.
And we've never
more.
spent our budget. So, that's something to be proud of on all of our behalves, we don't.
I won't mention any names, but years ago, we had an attorney, and he would basically gouge the applicants. And I questioned one time, and I couldn't get a straight answer. And that we have to watch and take advantage of, yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right, so there is a motion on the floor. It sounds unanimous to me. So we do a roll call vote for both individuals. A roll call vote for the first, which was for Kara, for our attorney. Yes being yes and no being no.
Yes, so yay, yay. They're not different. All right, for Kara to continue to be our attorney for the planning board, Jose Reyes,
Yes.
Judy Nelson,
Yes.
Grace Ann Kelly,
Yes.
Ryan Messinger,
Yes.
Jose Maderos,
Yes.
Philip Bellin,
Yes.
Brad Nelson,
Yes.
Ken Shalay,
Yes.
Jeff Coletti,
Yes.
Steve DiLorenzo,
Yes.
Daniel McDonald.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's everybody, so.
Yeah.
it was unanimous.
Unanimous.
Yes, yes.
Just that we don't, Paul is absent. That's the only thing that makes it not unanimous. So do I need to? roll call?
No.
All can't vote.
Stay
All right,
with that.
if you could just,
With that.
send him an email or call tomorrow, tell him we appreciate him.
Tomorrow or Thursday?
Thursday, I'm sorry. I really appreciate you coming in. And it was discussed very, very highly. Okay. Right. All right, we have old business. Planning board bylaws. So, Jose has gone through and made some comments. I also have a comment, basically specifically, and it was just brought up as far as Zoom. And with what has happened, at the last township committee meeting. And our reliance on Zoom as far as having, our planning board members be on, it's something that we, we naturally allow. But with what happened this past week, it's a concern. I think when any of us are on Zoom, it's a challenge. Now this is more of a discussion point. It's a challenge to hear, to understand. I think things are broken up a lot of times. When we're in person, it's a little bit more, it's a lot easier to follow what somebody's saying. And although I can see, the front line here can see people here, can see who is on Zoom. It's a challenge for the sides to see. And I wish that was different. I wish we could put some technology up on the walls here so we can do it. But that's not up to us, that's up to the township committee to get that done and have Lou involved in that, I would guess. But that's not the case right now.
And a better sound system.
And, better sound system, but it's,
The problem with Zoom is that even a good sound system, a lot of times it doesn't come through well.
It's the boxing.
so it's,
There, just to chime in here, I mean, there's a commitment on the part of the township committee to improve the visibility of the conference to people who are in the room. And what we've been thinking of is putting monitors on either side of the wall. So there's a monitor facing the board and a monitor on either side facing the audience. But once again, I totally agree with you. It's not a perfect solution to the problem. We've gotten better, and it keeps getting better. There's a serious technical problem that we are going to solve very shortly, and that's related to the high-speed internet that goes to the building, which is really just too slow to support these conferences. That's going to get fixed. And I mean, my suggestion to you is to allow it as a means for certainly as a means for the public to keep connecting in. But let's keep an eye on the possibilities that are out there to keep improving it. And I'll keep pushing for that.
right.
I certainly wouldn't want to reduce our Zoom availability to the public.
No, and I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying specifically, we as board members,
Right.
I really want to
And
not necessarily see any of you on there, only because it's a challenge.
Right.
Jose was last week.
I was last year.
Jeff was last week. Jose was last week. And when you're not here, it's your
point's not getting across.
your point's not coming across. You're right. I mean, there's no easier way to say it. And you're stuck in this little box. It's, although you're a part of the conversation, you're not a part of the conversation.
You're boxed out, basically.
And so,
And that's why I don't like it when Kara's in there also, because it's the same thing. She's not really part of the conversation.
and that's what this whole, so again, everybody who's part of the board is, and again, Kara's used it for a couple of times because she had specific issues that I understand we all have an issue from time to time, and so when something happens, it's better to at least be there than not be here. But, I'm not saying we should limit it for the public. I'm saying I'd like to limit it for the specific board members and professionals. Because again, Tom's been on it, Kara's been on it, and the challenge is, is they are, boxed out. It's it's definitely the challenge. So, I don't know if it's something that we haven't brought technology into our into our bylaws, and I don't think we should do a steadfast rule about it, but I think it's something that we all need to pay specific attention to, do our best to get here. versus not.
Can you add something saying, you know, prioritize being here in person, and, you know, we do understand that situations do arise. Where if you can't be in, I mean, it's better to be able to dial and not be here. But again, prioritize being here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For our paid professionals, if you're lacking something with them being on Zoom, then, I mean, what we're saying, we're paying for them to be present and here and 100% available to everybody who's here. So I think it does make sense to consider limiting or even prohibiting their attendance via Zoom. Again, maybe there could be some sort of, you know, extreme circumstance that would permit it. But again, kind of the default should be here first. I feel a little bit different about members of the board. Only because again, we're not here in a capacity of professionals, we're here as volunteers to participate in this function, right? And I think to a certain extent, you know, even being able to participate at 50% in that capacity is still better than not. Again, not ideal, and I would completely support saying let's prioritize being here in person. It certainly shouldn't be the default of, hey, let's fall back to Zoom. But it is good, at least, especially, you know, for winter time, if sicknesses roaming around and stuff. Like, I would certainly rather, if Steve's got a terrible cold, join by Zoom rather than sit here. You know, no offense, Steve, you know, but I think there's a practicality to it that it would be foolish to just say we shouldn't allow that as an option ever, or.
Can we look at other bylaws too? Because not saying it's going to happen or anything, but a lot of government entities, healthcare entities, and that are preparing for the next pandemic and things that will more than likely happen. You know, I'm not, like a, you know, safer rattler or getting anybody anxious, but maybe we can look and see others and other entities that have put about Zoom, because it has been, I'm not a big fan of Zoom, but it has really assisted in keeping things running a lot of times. Look at us, we did it even, you know, but it kept things running. So I'd like to see how it's written, like with bylaws or something, because you don't want, prohibiting is maybe, but then you're gonna have to make a clause in the event of pandemic, things like that, all bets are off. You're gonna be on Zoom in more ways than we
Yeah,
want to.
it's, I'm not saying necessarily prohibit, but the term prioritizing is.
Make every attempt or something like that.
Yeah.
We expect
Look,
people to make every
if you're
attempt to
sick,
be
you don't
here.
want to take down the entire board.
No,
Right, that's the last thing you want to do, but, you know, again, if I don't feel like getting dressed, get dressed and come in. Right, you know, again, if I'm traveling and I'm in Texas or something like that.
yeah,
Okay,
you could still join.
it's better to zoom in than
Not to
not,
be.
but
And I agree, there is some value to it, yes. And
There's some
if you get
loss,
50% of it, that's more than nothing. But at the same time, this system is not the best I've seen and worked with. We have, I Zoom with a lot of people and have Zoom meetings with a lot of people outside of here. It's so much better.
yeah, because ours was, even on the receiving end,
building.
when we were
Oh,
on
yeah.
Zoom, it was fragmented sometimes, and I couldn't get the whole,
We do have a big problem here with our internet speed and our connectability, so that's, and the acoustics also don't, help, yeah.
that's
But I
true.
mean,
We're working to fix some of those real serious problems.
yeah, you mentioned
Doesn't
that.
takes more than a day to get some of these things fixed though, but we will get them.
Yeah. 4 years.
If I could just add one more point, that is that everyone knows that there was a really serious problem last week. I want you to know that you know, from a trust and safety perspective, we've taken significant measures to make sure that never occurs again. I can't promise it'll absolutely never occur again, because after things run smoothly for like 6 to 10 months, 6 to 12 months, you start lifting your guard goes down a little bit.
Well,
Well, that's the second time that happened.
I did want to ask actually, because Ken, you think you had passed out the example from Flemington and their bylaws, and they have a very short section that talks about video conferencing, but at the top of the list, it says that every participant comes in, they're automatically muted. And then if you want to speak, you've got to raise your hand through Zoom, and then the moderator.
That's how it works.
We've
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
gone further than that. We've actually gone further than that. People now come into the waiting room. They're not gonna be allowed in if they're not identifying themselves. Like somebody just connected in right now as iPhone. They're not gonna be connected until they change their name to whatever their name is. And the other thing is we have essentially a scram button that basically shuts down the conference, keeps everything alive. So it's not like disconnecting everything like I ended up doing last Thursday. But it essentially shuts everything down, puts everyone into a freeze position, and I can see who's causing problems and disconnect them, restart the waiting room or leave the waiting room up and get those people out of there. So the tool we have now is much more powerful than the tool we had last Thursday. So we'll get that thing under control. I think the real issue that needs to be fixed over time is the quality of audio. To me, that's the biggest problem. When multiple people are talking, sometimes the audio just goes to hell, essentially. And I believe, and we've had conferences and discussions with Zoom about this, and rather with OWL, the people who make the OWL device, and they say it's related to the internet speed. So there's a whole bunch of other reasons to fix the internet speed in the municipal building, and we're going to do that. We were at the staff meeting at the beginning of at the end of December, a couple of weeks ago, and a commitment was made to do that going forward. So let's do that and keep trying to continually improve it. But I totally agree with you on anything you want to do with respect to restrictions. I think it makes sense for people to be there if they possibly can be there. No question about it.
So Lou, something that you just, so what keeps, you have a resident who doesn't fit with the opinion of the board, and they decide they get a little bit more vocal. I don't
We had some situations like that a couple of years ago.
I don't want necessarily you to have the power just to disconnect them.
The chairman can ask me to disconnect them or to mute them, and I can do that now.
You follow what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I don't want that to come from
I'm always going to follow your lead or the lead of the mayor.
the mayor.
Right.
Okay.
Good question. Have you looked at your Teams, Microsoft Teams, any better than Zoom in your opinion, or doesn't it matter?
We've looked at Teams. In fact, we use Teams quite a bit. Teams is very heavily used in the state, and it's used very heavily in the court system. In fact, even in Bethlehem Township, it's used in the court system. I found good and bad things about it. You know, we've gone down this route at this point. I'm not sure what the compatibility of the OWL is to with Teams. We could look at, but you know, right now, I'd rather finesse with Zoom than start changing horses in midstream, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
no, I'm just curious if you thought it was
Right now-
better and it was
Right,
worth.
right now, it's more of, I'd like this to be where everybody can see it, because I mean, they have no idea what's going on. And neither do you, you know, at least the four of you guys, you can't see anything. So-
And a lot of times too, we can't hear.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, so,
I have a hard time understanding Lucas.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's something that we have to write into the bylaws. I think, you know, I think your point, Ken, is that, you know, just encourage us all to try and be here. I do think that Jose's point about getting 50% of the meeting is better than nothing, sometimes that's not true.
Yeah, yeah. That's making a decision based on half the information.
Half the information, and that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that could be a big problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I agree that, you know. And as far as Grace Ann's point about having to have something in here, when COVID hit, when COVID hit, we didn't need to have anything in the bylaws to say.
That
it's all good.
was state.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's necessary to put anything into the bylaws about COVID or, you know. Yeah.
All right, you want to go over your
So,
points?
yeah, I made a list, so.
Article 5, Section 1.
Yeah, Article 5, Section 1, lays out the length of the meetings. which is important to note because, you know, by that bylaw, we limit our meetings to 3 hours, so just keep that in mind. I also think that in Article 5, Section 2, it says that we must have at least 12 meetings at a minimum. I think we should really pump that up, because I think we should have 12 planning meetings. We have a lot of things that we have to do for planning in this town all the time, and we should be doing, you know, to stay current, just to keep up with the ordinances that are, even just reviewing them. I mean, that's part of that is our main mission, is to plan. So I would say, you know, I'm not saying that we definitely have to change that, I'm just saying that we should keep that.
Well, so the reference to that is our meeting dates, which we approve, gives us basically 22.
Right.
So that's giving a minimum standard. So, you know, in the case of, you know, we have nothing to do, at least the town guaranteed one month,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
So I don't think we necessarily need to change that, considering we've already adopted the actual meeting dates.
Right. So on,
The reason that is 12 is that is the minimum legally allowed in the state.
Right.
For land use.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that's there, is that it's like a catch for us to make sure we meet the minimum, you know, legal requirement.
Right.
But clearly the township's committed to 2 a month, so.
Article 5, Section 5.
Article 5, Section 5, so that talks about the.
So actually, before you get into that, because Article 5 has 2 Section 5s. So there's, and I think what you're referring to is actually Section 6, Section 5. So we should A, correct that, and then B, your note, because I think with the second 5, not the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the second 5. Dealing with, I didn't notice that. I was looking at it.
I was thinking about it today, actually.
Well, anyway, the second Section 5, I guess is now Section 6. So on the third sentence, it says the board may exclude the public only from those portions of the meeting at which the board discusses matters within the exclusions provided under NJ. It's not very clear to the public. I think all we have to add to that is that, that the board may exclude the public in entering into executive session only for those portions of the meeting at which the board discusses matters within the exclusions provided under the sunshine. Because that's what that section of
That's what
the,
it is.
yeah, so it
just to make it
clarifies.
clarify.
Yeah, it's just a clarification.
You're just adding the phrase and enter into executive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone have any issue with that? It's a clarification.
Then, again, Article 5, Section 5, public comments will only be allowed when a motion is made and seconded and approved by a majority of the board. But no motion may be made while the board is currently in discussion. That's so that we don't, you know, we've had a couple of times where somebody in the audience just shouts out something and kind of disrupts our discussion. Our discussions should come first. And our, you know.
So public comment has to come prior to that motion being made. Once that motion is made, the discussion is only amongst the board, not with the public at all. When a motion is made and seconded,
For
that discussion point is only within the board for discussion of that said motion.
Right.
It's
So
not,
all I'm doing is codifying, basically. It's saying that, you know, under what circumstance, because there have been instances, I can.
public comments will only be allowed when a motion is made and seconded.
Right,
We're not allowing the public to make. Public comment about anything needs to be made prior to that motion being made. Once that motion is made and seconded, it's only a discussion between the board. We're not opening it up to the public.
I think you're referring to a motion to open to the public,
right.
not
So
a
you-
motion, and you're referring to a motion on some.
A general motion.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, what I'm saying is, so we often, you know, if somebody stands up and says, hey, you know, I've got something to say about this. In the middle of our discussion, sometimes we'll say, okay, do we hear a motion to open the public? I would prefer if we finish our discussion before we do that. We can say, hold that thought, And when we're done discussing, so that everybody gets their points out, and they don't lose track of the points that they want to make, then we can open it up to the public if somebody stands up and says, you know, because that's not, we typically wouldn't give the public a chance to speak, you know, during that anyway. That's not part of the agenda schedule.
It's not, but
I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's not worded right here. I think what you were saying is that the public is not allowed to comment on anything until we make a motion to open it to the public.
Right.
And once we make the motion to close to the public, no discussion,
From the public.
done,
Right,
and only on that topic.
right.
Yeah, because to me, I was like, I thought the public got to comment on the topic before we made a motion on the topic.
Yeah, no,
No, so.
no, this is. so
But I
that
think
when
if
we're in
we
the middle of
changed
the
it a little
discussion-
bit, yeah, if we changed it, that the public is only allowed to comment when motion has been made for public comment,
Right,
should cover.
yeah, yeah, I agree. That would work fine. I think the second part of that kind of, you know, this shall not apply to any public periods scheduled on the agenda where no motion must be made. And also, that's the other thing is that I don't think if something is scheduled on the agenda, we shouldn't have to have a motion to open to the public. I think because it's an agenda item. So there's no need to make that motion. We don't make motions to go into any of the other items that are agenda items. You know what I'm saying?
well, no,
Just
I mean,
open.
again, the beginning of the night is for general comments.
Right.
So tonight there was a question
Right.
prior to,
Yeah, yeah,
and again, if said individual had no idea what was going on, they're sitting there completely wondering what is going on.
no, because you're still gonna say, you know, do we have any comments from the public
Well,
on?
no,
on those-
because again, what we did tonight has no comments for the public. That had no comments.
Yeah, the agenda has it.
No. There's no comments made based on what our discussion was with the individual. There was no open public comments. So this gave us a chance.
I think,
Prior to us beginning tonight.
Yeah.
All right, we had a public question,
Right,
which was then,
but that's already on the agenda.
all those days saying is, we don't need to.
We don't need to make a motion in
Make
a
a
second,
motion in a second to go to
Oh,
the public.
because it's already on the agenda.
okay.
Yeah, that's all. So I think that we could just say, you know, because it's on the agenda, people know that they're gonna be able to speak.
Now it's time for public comment. Does anyone have it?
So,
Exactly.
so one of the things that I see often is, you know, hands starting to raise and flipping out that they want to make comments.
Right,
I think after every major talking point, this topic that we discussed, we should have the chance to open to the public for comment for that, and not necessarily waiting until the end of the night.
right. And that's where my first point came up, that the public comments will only be allowed when the motion is made and seconded. So that way, and it also says that it can't be done in the middle of our discussion.
Yeah.
So that after our discussion is done, then we can, if you think that it's, you know, if you're seeing a lot of hands going up and stuff, then you can ask for a motion to open to the public, and we can second it and vote on it. You know,
So just so I'm taking the note properly, when we have a topic, the topic is announced like the bylaws. The board has its discussion, and at the conclusion of that conversation or discussion, then if it seems appropriate, you'll ask for a motion to open to the public. And the idea is that during the discussion, it can always be said, if the public, you know, if somebody stands up and says they want to, you know, but can I speak to that? You can say at the end of the discussion.
Right.
So that, but it has happened where in the middle of a discussion, it's been open to the public. So I think this formalizes that, and that allows the public to know they will have an opportunity, but the board concludes. So did I understand that's what you're looking to do?
Exactly.
Okay.
that's exactly it.
All right, now that does everybody agree with that?
Yes, but just one, but we don't, on any given topic, we don't ever have to go to public comment.
Right, it won't be put on the agenda, it's gonna, we're talking about the bylaws, and I just, so that we can spell it out in there, and at least I know what I'm trying to convey when I make the edits.
So the next item is time limits. So if there are 15 to 29 members of the public, not counting applicants, there shall be a time limit on public comments of 5 minutes per person. If there are 30 or more members of the public, not counting applicants, the limit would be 3 minutes. This is to allow all members of the public a chance to speak without using too much of the meeting time permitted in section 1, 3 hours. So if you think about that, you know, if 15 people stand up and speak for 5 minutes, that's an hour and a quarter of our 3-hour meeting. And if it's 29 people, it's a full hour and a half of our 3-hour meeting, so that's half our meeting. So, you know, I think that allows a lot of time for people, but it still allows us to get our business done, and let everybody have a chance to speak. And then I go on to say that the chair or 2 members of the board, somebody who makes a motion in seconds, could move to stop any comments that are completely repetitive of prior comments or in conflict with Article 12, Section 6, which we haven't gotten to yet. For the purpose of this section, the count should be made at the beginning of the public comment period, either calls by the chair or scheduled on the agenda to be valid for all, and to be valid only for that comment period. So in other words, you know, if we're starting public comment at some point and there's only 14 people, then that public comment at the beginning wouldn't be limited by time at all. If 3 or 4 more people come in later on, then at the end of the night, that would kick in. And by having it codified to the number of people that are here, first of all, again, it's based on getting as much comment as we can get from as many people as we can get without it basically using up the whole meeting to discuss things. And then my last item, and I don't know if you want to.
Not going, yeah.
Could I have a question before you go to the next item? What happens if there are more than 30 people?
Again, 30 and
I mean,
more is 3 minutes.
yeah, but what happens if we happen to have, we've had meetings where we've had quite a lot of people, we continue the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, we're not allowed to go past 3 hours by our bylaws.
So we would,
We'd have to shut down the meeting and continue questions
continue
at the next meeting, which, again,
We've done it a few times.
that's the main reason that we do this, but yeah, and that's also the reason for the chair and board members to say, hey, you know, you're saying the exact same thing that the last guy said, or that the guy before said.
The reason for the 3 hours goes back to when we were having large groups of people could not be held in this building because we were breaking fire codes, so we were over at one of the schools. We were using the school's resources and we were paying, yeah, the custodian to stay. That's where the 10 o'clock time limit came, because then he had to set the cafeteria back up from our meetings. So that's where a lot of the genesis of this came, right? Is my memory correct on that? So chances are, when you're talking about this section, if you've got more 90 people, we're not gonna be here. So we ended up, if I'm not mistaken, we ended up having to,
Yeah, it's overcome.
The other
Yeah.
part of it, huh? Yes.
yeah, we had to cut them.
Yeah, for that, I mean,
Yep. So,
And Ken set the rule in the beginning.
right,
He said, told everybody that was at that meeting, those meetings, that we have a time limit of 10:30. Granted, sometimes we went 5 minutes over.
yeah, yeah.
But it was a goal of 10:30.
I mean, we really start to lose our focus when we start going into really late hours too. I mean, we used to have meetings that went on to 1 o'clock in the morning. And these were, you know,
sometimes it's very dry testimony.
yeah, and it's, you know, you're listening to people just going on and on and on about the development that they're proposing.
Right.
And, you know, and then we're going on for hours on that. It starts to get very tough. And I think that in those meetings, we missed a lot of things. So I think it's good that we have a time limit, but at the same time,
I think it's anything below 14. So like what's here now, there is no limit.
there's no, right,
Which is fine, so it doesn't limit most meetings at all. We'll never even hit this, and the times that we are gonna hit it, it's gonna be a significant situation, so.
and it's a significant amount of time for public comment.
Well,
5 minutes is pretty long.
You got a few people here, you got
Yeah.
somebody wants.
Well, I mean-
Right, half an hour, you should be able to cut it.
Yeah, the 5 minutes, yeah.
Well, no, you could give them more than 5 minutes,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of people here,
No.
but then you can't give them like all night.
No,
So-
5 minutes is more reasonable than three. Because three, a lot of people, when you're talking about the public, to get nervous. By the time they just gather a thought, almost like 45 seconds have passed. People sometimes are shaking because they got a paper there. So by the time they compose themselves, three, I wouldn't be fond of three. You know, 3 minutes really, granted, at times it seems like forever when we're waiting for something else. But for somebody to get up in front of a microphone in front of like we had 90 people, you know, I'd like to give people a chance to compose themselves. You know, whether or not they're gonna be a little hostile, whether they're gonna be, you know, an agreement, not an agreement. 5 minutes, I think, is good, but anything below that, you gotta give people a chance to compose themselves.
Three is the standard for most
Yeah.
places.
And so 3
Yeah,
minutes.
school board is three, right?
Yeah.
Is it really?
So 3 minutes times 9 people. is
No, but
270 minutes.
but then you cut the meeting, we cut ourselves off at those big meetings
Yeah.
where,
Well,
we had to, and we
Again,
said,
getting back, I mean, that's where we start scheduling, special meetings,
Right.
meetings at 30.
yeah,
So that's what's gonna happen, we did it already.
Right.
So it'll happen again. I think it probably is a good starting point, at least it does.
yeah, the five,
Yeah,
the three, I didn't know, like the other book.
Well, three is, I mean, he's got in here that it's 30 or more people. I mean,
3 minutes does seem kind of brief, but at the same time, like 5 minutes, 5 minutes of talking is a significant amount of content. You can get a lot in here.
Yeah.
in 5 minutes. But I'll say this, so the one question I had is going back to, I believe the township committee did something where they kind of cycled. So if, you say you have a meeting with 35 people at it, only 2 people get up and talk. They both hit their 5 minute limit. If they want to go back and do another 5 minutes because they were the only 2 that had anything to say,
Yeah.
that's allowed.
You can do that, yeah.
The township rules. Do we want to have something like that incorporated?
Yeah,
here
once,
as well?
once everybody's spoken.
Right.
Yeah,
If we go back.
But how many times can they come back?
Well,
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at the resolution.
Yeah, that is the way we did it. That's the way you guys did it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, even like in the big meetings that we've had in the past, other hearings and stuff, like you could have 90 people here, not every one of those 90 people gets up with comment.
Yeah.
No,
there was a line.
There was a line.
And there was a lot of people, there was a lot of people who would come up, once somebody made a point, they'd get right back online again, so that they could say something else again too, because they got reminded of something.
Yeah.
But I think.
It does get to the point on, mainly land use. It gets to be the same comment repeated.
yes,
And,
well,
and so,
even with the attorneys,
and so,
a
we
elected
can,
one,
so, I mean, that can say, it's been testified to, thank you.
yes,
Exactly.
and that's
I
appropriate.
just want to say, be careful with that, because, sometimes town people just want to be heard.
Yeah,
So if I say, oh, someone already said that, I honestly, look, we're here to represent the people, and I know redundancy is an annoying thing, but I think we as a board would create more animosity if we said, oh, we already heard that, we want to hear from you. Because then that person feels completely devalued as a townsperson, and I don't know, I'm not comfortable with that.
I mean, in what we're referring to, everybody spoke and everybody would get two minutes into it. And at that point, I would say something.
But I
So, I mean,
the thought,
I always let them speak, but if there's regurgitating the same thing at board.
but it's the repetitive, I was reading it as being repetitive of the single person, like I say myself, keep repeating the same thing
Yeah.
in my narrative or whatever I'm giving there. That's what I'm thinking. No, but I agree with you. If a person, everybody wants to say, this is all full of shit and blah, 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 and then the next person wants to get up and say that, they should be heard. Right.
And I think there's value.
It's more
in-
me repeating the things over and over
There's
again.
value in us as a board understanding the volume of the issue, right? And sometimes that comes
Yes.
from hearing repetitive, like, is
Yes.
it 5 people who have a problem with this, or is it 50 people?
So, I mean,
I know
that's,
that because we hear it repetitive.
but that's
Good point.
certainly something that we could say, Okay, well, you're the second person that said that. How many people here feel that same way?
It's not the same.
No, because sometimes people just want to say, yeah, they want to vocalize it.
Yeah,
People come here, they want to be heard.
That's.
I realize it, but at the same time, we have to get things done.
And I think that that's an argument why, the 3 minutes is kind of a standard thing, because a lot of this, when you get to 50 people, is this repetitive nature. So just having that 3 minute minimum
Okay.
kind of focuses the individual on, hey, you have a short amount of time to get your point across, you can let everyone be heard, but we don't have to have 5 minutes worth of the same thing over and over again. We can.
Point taken, yeah.
I mean, I like what you wrote out, it's very like well thought out, but sometimes I just think if you have just one amount of time, it's not that we have to count the number of people in the audience, and it maybe makes it easier for the public to kind of understand as well, that like, hey, here's the time limit. The way that we have it, it's the same, if you use your 3 minutes and then after everyone's heard, you can come up 1 second time. But it's also kind of at the discretion of the chair. So if I see that there's only 2 people in the audience, I'm not keeping a timer on my phone for the 3 minutes kind of thing, you know, let them speak and. But if we see that there's 50,
Then that has to be in discretion of the chair.
I was just gonna say, if we're gonna codify anything, we also need to make sure that the chair, we codify that the chair has discretion to blow it all up. If you have to pick something else or whatever, like, you know.
Good point. I think that is already in there.
Well, but if in your.
Yeah,
part
it
about the
says, yeah,
number of the
nothing
time-
herein, it says nothing herein shall be construed to limit the discretion of the board to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, so that kind of covers.
We've all been
And
saying.
that's, I didn't want to take that out of there, but, you know, I figured we'd leave that in there. So my last point was to add, to Article 12, the new section 6. Which says that the board will not accept or listen to any evidence or opinion on a property that is not currently before the board with an application. This policy shall be respected so that, number 1, members are not prejudiced, which would therefore lead to conflict with Article 9, Section 6. And 2, any such evidence or opinion could cause conflict, which would therefore be detrimental to applicants when a hearing is scheduled, which could then show bias or raise claims of prejudicial actions with any decision made by the board to cause a court of law to overturn the will of the board. So I think that that's very important. We are not allowed to look at things that are not applications before the board.
Section 6.
What's that?
He wants to
There
add,
is no article.
he wants to add it.
I want to add,
It's,
But isn't that land, isn't that part of what we're?
Yeah.
he's adding a second.
I think you mean section 6 of section, or 6 of
Okay.
section 5.
section 12.
No.
No, no, you referred to Article 9, section 6. Okay,
That's just, Article 9 says that we're not allowed to be prejudiced.
I know, but what I'm saying is you put Article 9, section 6, I think you mean Article 9. point-
You're doing 5.6.
Yes,
There is no article in section 6.
There's Article 9.
you mean section
Yeah,
5.
Section 5.6, yeah, sorry.
5.
5.6, yeah. So in other words, there's already a law, a rule that we have,
That's right.
that you're not allowed to enter into any of these hearings with prejudice. We're not, you really are supposed to listen to the evidence presented,
Right.
and then, you know, that's our job as a quasi judicial board, is to listen to the evidence that's presented and make our determination on the evidence that we've heard, and, you know, along with guidance from our professionals.
But I don't know how you can effectively put in a bylaw something that's going to limit what a member of the public is going to say to us.
We
I
can
think,
cut them off.
well, what I think you can do is you can instruct the board to not consider, comments that are made that are, that follow this guideline. So there can be instructions to this board.
But we've had multiple times when somebody's come up and given us pictures of what's going on somewhere. Okay, we should not be accepting those, because if we do, and the applicant comes back to us and says, were you shown pictures that you looked at? That's evidence that was not marked and it was not, authorized to be introduced, yet we accepted it. So that's something that, I'm looking always at, when we make a determination and somebody sues us, we have to go into that court with the best possible case. And the best possible case comes in when we always do the right things, which is we only look at evidence when there's a hearing before us.
It's a fair point. I mean, because I see where you're coming from, but again, I think short of having a state trooper here that's going to block the public from approaching us with a picture or
No,
something.
we just don't have to accept.
Well, again, I think that's where we can say as a board, with all due respect, we're not going to accept that here. It's not like but again, it's instructions to the board, not necessarily, the way this is written kind of feels like instructions to the public or something that we're gonna prevent the public from doing, which I just don't feel like we can effectively do.
Well, for example, if a member of the public comes up and starts presenting evidence about a property that doesn't have a hearing before us, at that point, the chair should say, I'm sorry, we can't listen to that because of Article 12, Section 6. We're not allowed to accept any, evidence for something that we're not hearing. And then he can cut it off. And if he doesn't, somebody on the board can say, excuse me, Chairman, under Articles 12, Section 6, we are not allowed to hear this evidence being presented to
Well,
us
there
on a
has
property
been
that we
comments
don't.
like that, which was made by the chair too. In that case, when people have come up and
Yeah.
said, so we can't comment on things that are not.
Well, it's not even just.
And we can't, right,
Yeah.
and, but the thing is, you are cutting the person off, but you're doing it, I don't know if we need that.
The
I don't
challenge,
think
the challenge,
we need
challenge
this
is
in the
walking,
bylaw.
challenge is walking the line between,
Right. Being
between-
respectful and,
between being respectful
yes,
with,
right,
With what then? We're accepting information and testimony that is basically
they
on
cut them off,
something.
though.
well, if I.
But he cuts, he
Yeah,
cut them
as long
off.
as you're cutting it off.
That's it.
But this gives him something that he can lean on to say, that's why we're cutting it off.
Well,
Because
But
in
isn't
our-
it a standard of practice amongst land use and amongst,
But
the
it
law?
hasn't been. That's the
but
problem.
it, there are certain things, like you don't put protocol or standards of practice in every bylaw on that. It's a standard of practice.
What is it?
They call it more.
But even if it's for a property that
Yes, then.
he's never gonna have something in front of us, right? Someone comes up and says, my neighbor's doing this, that, and the other thing. Well, we're not,
The body for them.
right, we're not the body for that.
Right.
Go to the zoning officer, go to the township committee.
Right.
And because then if it does come back to us, and we
Exactly.
have heard them,
Exactly.
and we're now prejudiced that we believed him, that his neighbor was being a jerk or whatever it might be.
Exactly the point.
We need to say, listen, go to the zoning
That's
officer.
But again, that's.
We say that.
We do, but I think we've had too much, I agree with Jose, I think we've had too much open conversation on occasion. And now, again, hopefully no one's gonna be suing us every chance they get, and I wanna be open and,
But to cut it
you
off,
know,
right, you gotta.
well, I like everybody, but at some point,
But even with that, doesn't it make sense to say that the board will not engage in
That's
discussion
it.
or debate over such evidence that's presented? Again, it's direction to the board that we're not going to engage with that type of evidence presentation that's inappropriate.
I mean, these are our bylaws, not the public's bylaws.
Correct, yeah.
And it sounds like what you want to do is tell the public that, it's not what we have.
no, we just gotta cut them off when they're.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it gives us the tool to say, this is why we can't listen to what you're saying. And it's, if it's in our bylaws, it's in our bylaws, and and it's something that we can't say, okay, we can hear this one, We should, no matter what, we should. We don't have the authority to override anything.
Yeah,
No, I agree,
Right.
It's a situation, I mean, because I've seen it enough times here.
Can I also ask too, so this is specific to applications. What about times when we as a board are having discussions about ordinances, like the tree ordinance, for example? There were definitely times when there were discussions around specific
But
topics.
we're having a hearing on the tree ordinance. So that is a hearing, but we have a time that we are specifically opening to the public for them to hear, for them to get their comments.
But this just is an application.
That is an application. That's, I mean, I guess we could put in any hearing.
Or an agenda item or something.
The agenda item.
Or an agenda item
Yeah.
that we're having a discussion about, they should be able to comment on, because it's open to the public.
Right.
Whatever.
But it should never be something, you know, we should never hear complaints that, hey, my neighbor built this and I'm not happy with it, you guys need to do something about it. If we comment on that, or if we even hear it,
Mhm.
you know, it becomes something that could become a problem in the future. At that point, you just have to cut it off and say, go to the zoning officer or go to the township committee. We don't have the authority to hear
Mhm.
We've done that.
You say
it.
that.
We have, yeah, we've done it on,
It's been done.
yeah.
It's been done.
It's very, very hard to police, right? Because if someone gets up, they say, so my neighbor's property, oh, sorry, no applications, get out of here, you know, kind of
Well,
thing.
I
Like,
mean,
I think Kara should weigh in on this before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where I was going, so,
yeah, it'd be fine.
so
You know.
I have your
Again,
word.
these are just, you know, these are just my suggestions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
No,
not saying that they should
appreciate
be
it.
passed as they are.
Absolutely.
You know, they should certainly be, you know, mulled over by everybody and looked at by Karen and, you know, and language should be changed as appropriate, so that it's more understandable, more clear, whatever. But I think everybody gets the points that I'm making.
All right, well, table bylaws,
Okay.
3 minutes are up.
you hit 3 minutes.
So this hasn't taken.
Yeah, it should table, but, there was comments made and significant, so it's open to the public. See if anyone has any comments. So,
So, besides tabling, well, what's the next step then?
next step is gonna talk to Kara about her suggestions and putting it together.
But do we need to have a little more discussion on what everyone agrees with, or we all?
Well, they monitored, so she kind of heard what everybody had. Let's make sure, it's legal.
Does anybody have any?
Does anyone have any objection? to
Well,
that?
it's still coming back before us.
Right.
And then we talk more.
But if we know some, right, that 5 of us don't want the 5
When
minutes
it-
and we want 3, should we, you know, finalize that now, instead of waiting again until next week, and then we gotta rewrite them again, and then we gotta like, I'm just trying to see if there's anything we can discuss further to reduce the number of edits and back and forth, that's all. And I didn't hear any objection, but I'm just asking a question, does anyone object to anything that?
Well, timing, I think it ended up being 5 and 3 was fair. Ultimately, that's what I heard everybody saying. So that's where that's going. The first couple, were more or less addressed by what we currently have. And we were in agreement on the third and fourth one. So,
Okay.
so,
I think the only one that might have had some discussion was, Article 12, new section 6.
Yeah.
And, and that should be discussed with Karen.
Yeah.
Sure, to see.
and so let's open the public and have any comments the public might have about these.
Make a motion to open to the
I'll
public.
second it.
All those in favor? Any comments?
Walter, 424 Charlestown Road, thank you for opening the public. A few things, I like the 5 minutes, because sometimes if you have the thoughts or you're reading, 3 minutes is just too much. And if, I don't know the exact words, but using words as may versus shall. The township committee did it where they used word may, I believe. So obviously it's up to your discretion, but may is a better terminology than shall. And then, as far as redundancy, besides just volume, anybody that gets up here now is on record. That's a lot of times why I speak, not that I say anything worthwhile, but I'm on record. So if you have person ABC coming up and saying the same thing that every other person said, it's on record. So that is extremely important information in my mind. And then, when you do open to I kind of got confused, and let's say you're making a motion on something, and you're discussing it, and then you're gonna make a motion. I like when you open to public after your discussion, before your motion, so the board members can make their motions based on the public, and I don't know how it's worded, but that's my recommendation, so you do get public input, because I like how Ryan keeps wording it, is what do the residents want? And I understand you have to run a meeting, but you do want to try to get residents' input as much as possible. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
Motion. I don't think we have a motion close to the public.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The one thing that, the one comment that I'd like to make address to that is that even though people may say the same thing over and over again for the record, it does not mean that we are allowed to use that in our deliberations. Because we have certain rules that, we can, the public can say over and over and over again that they don't like the idea of that house being blue. But, if we don't have the right given to us by the land use laws, we cannot address that. We can't use that in our deliberations, no matter what.
Agree.
So, I mean, we
No,
have to be careful.
And that's part of whether, we have a legal explanation, whether it's discussed, straightforward. Again, there's things that the MUL allows us to look at, and there's other things that don't. So I believe, in our, two-year long hearing, that was explained numerous times. And then even with old voting members, Kara went through and explained to everybody about the different pieces that had to be met.
Yeah, I mean, there's a component of that that includes, review for negative criteria, which again, I think part of that does apply then. Like the amount of people who would be negatively affected by something versus the positive impact for the applicant.
But
It's
negative,
part of the equation.
even negative criteria can only be used for the variance.
We're kind of combining a whole bunch of things that come before us, and that's really the problem right now. Like, we're combining everything that we talk about and discuss, and, the variances. I think, everybody's making the general comments, but we can grab from all of it. People need to be heard.
Yeah, no, I understand that we need to be heard.
But yes, but we can do constraints on it.
Well,
And I
it's
think
not
that's-
just, it's not just that, but it's also that, part of it falls on our profession. They have to be able to explain to us that even though 100 people came up and said that, they don't like that house being blue, that we're not allowed to consider that
No.
as evidence or as any
Right.
negative criteria.
Right, but they
Because-
have a right to say it.
But yes, they have a right to
That's-
say it, but at the
we
same time.
knowing the law, knowing what,
Right.
the landlord, land use law is,
Right.
we,
But if we have other people come up and say, if we're discussing a fence ordinance and we're about to vote on it being 4 feet max, and we get 100 people saying, hey, I want a 10-foot fence.
Yeah,
Then we need to hear 100 people say, I want 10 feet, not 4 feet.
that's absolutely true.
And that we can listen.
That's a good point. But at the same time, we also have to kind of keep in mind that we're only hearing 100 people out of the whole town.
Out of 3,000, right, right, I totally agree.
So it's, it is a matter of, where we have to make sure that we follow the law.
yes, and that's, I think that.
We follow the law, the possibility of them swaying somebody is still there. If you get enough.
Yeah, but I
people
mean,
saying that.
but that's when we get sued.
But at the same time, I just feel, I agree, it should be on record. And people should be allowed to speak, and put that on record, regardless of what we're hearing.
Yeah. But
And what we can take from it.
And what we
And
can
what
take
we
from
can take from it.
Exactly. We have to make our own minds.
that is a good point, because if something is on the record and it's something that we should not be considering, and we don't, then it's good that it's on the record that we didn't consider it, because the courts are gonna look at that and say, yeah, you couldn't use that as a determining factor.
Mhm.
And so that is a helpful thing on the record. Yes, I agree.
It works both ways, yeah.
All right. All right, we're gonna get going this year with the home occupation ordinance review. Still do. But again, the county had issued a report that was sent out. I don't know, everybody got a copy of that? Everybody did?
I got a copy on email, but I don't have one here.
No, we're not discussing.
Okay, no, it's not discussed.
It's next steps.
So that's what it'll, we're gonna start working on it, so everybody, pull it out of your emails, print it out. Unless you're Jeff, and you have to keep everything there. It's paper, most of it's like, I like paper, so, print it out, and we're gonna start referencing that, the ordinance subcommittee,
I'm sorry. What are we talking about?
the home occupation ordinance.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It was sent out probably in October, so
Yeah,
it's been a while, so when I'm in the office on Thursday, I'll resend it to everyone.
You said it. I have a copy.
Yeah, you said that.
Oh, but the county report,
County report.
not just the
Oh, okay,
ordinance, the actual county
Yeah, there's two
report.
things.
I'm like, wait,
So the county report's pretty in-depth, and they did actually look at ours and gave us some hits and misses on it. And where, you know, they would see maybe us making some changes. Again, they could be, this is one of those ordinances that might draw the ire of people. Because the county basically wants, because of COVID, they want a lot more home occupations happening. And loosening up the regulations.
Because that ordinance was made well
So this,
years ago.
yeah, so it would be allowing, you know, a lot more going on in the house next door to you. Versus what is, you know, currently allowed. So, you know, I know when we did this the first time around, there's pretty steadfast people don't wanna, you know, be living next to a factory. If they live in a residential area kind of thing, so. So it could be a significant conversation. And again, we don't have to change it, we don't have to follow what the county said at all. But again, you know, COVID did change things, so.
And a couple of us were on that, committee when we did it,
Yeah.
the previous 2 years ago, maybe, 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's quite a while.
Yeah, and we can give insight into what the logic was and what.
I think that the thing that stood out to me the most glaring was that, we have an allowance for home offices, but that you have to get a permit for a home office. I think that that's something that we should do away with, the need to have a permit for a home office. I mean, you know, if you're telecommuting, you know, you should be able to work from home without having to get a permit to work from home, because there's really no good reason for that. It's not like, you know,
Again,
instead of going to
the
your
term-
office.
The term telecommuting didn't really exist.
No.
Yeah.
So-
It wasn't something that
A lot
was being
of
done a lot.
So it doesn't even,
A lot of times
It's got to be-
customers coming to your house and things like
that
that,
was never.
with the big thing
Yeah.
at that
The
time.
point is
that
you
was
were
going
running an
on.
office where you had traffic coming into your house and you had 2 or 3 or 4 cars parked in your driveway.
Exactly, that was
Yeah,
another big.
But it also, our current one also dealt with just home occupations or home offices that don't have anybody coming in. If you're just working out of your house, you know, you still have to get a permit. So I think that that's the thing that I think is.
I was gonna say, probably 90% of people in this town.
Exactly.
That come off.
Exactly, and we also limited it to only two offices per household. So if your wife and you were telecommuting, you're at the limit. If you have kids who are living with you who are doing it too, now you're out of compliance. So I mean, there are certain things that have definitely not aged well.
Yeah.
So,
Right. We'll reach out to the ordinance subcommittee and try to get a date to at least start to do some more things. All right, we have a motion to open the public.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Public comment period. Suzanne.
Couple things, thank you, Monica, for posting this stormwater pollution plan on the website, that was very helpful.
Suzanne, Wilder,
Huh?
Charlestown.
Road.
You gotta be repetitive now, come on.
Wait, that's. Suzanne Wilder, 424 Charlestown Road. Thank you, Monica, for posting the pollution plan and the master plan, outline up on the website. I do have questions about it, and I appreciate everyone's comments about the attorney. I have had my disagreements with Kara, but I think overall, she does represent the town and she has that background and information and knows about the Highlands, so I appreciate that. But, so the, planning board, where we're supposed to be, according to this, we're supposed to be at number 3 following the January meeting. Wait, where was it? Oh, no, number 2. January, during the second planning board meeting, we aim to collect comments from new board members. Can you just kind of say where we're at the process? Because I know it can be flexible. I'm just curious where you guys are physically at.
Only because I'm the one who's setting up those meetings and those things. We have not found, I have not spoken with Megan because we just appointed her and the resolution has to be signed. We need to get her final contract. So that's a little hang up right there. So we are a little behind, but we hope to catch up and get back on track. So I'm hoping to get that final report out, get the comments. Plus, because we had to have an interview today for the attorney.
Yeah.
It was, there wasn't time for us to do.
So you think that then either the first February meeting or the second will be the public draft posting? Is that?
That would be my.
Oh, so
that
then
the
you'll
first?
be, if you're at the first, then you'll be right back on schedule then, I
Yes.
think.
I try to give myself some cushion.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then, so we expect to see it around the first planning board meeting in February, which is the next meeting, and then we'll get to have comments at the next planning board meeting. Is that?
Again, that's the goal and that's the
Approximately.
outline where
Okay,
I wanted something else so that everybody could see some clarity on the process. It's not hard and fast, but we're trying to stick to that kind of a time.
okay, and just to Jose for the environmental commission, I'd like to make sure we can, I know we couldn't meet because of the weather, but we can meet as an environmental commission to get our comments, so you can report them back to the planning board meeting representing the environmental commission.
It'll be on the agenda.
Good, thank you. So somehow make sure that that gets into the mix there. Thanks.
Thank you.
So just so everybody knows how liberal 3 minutes is, all that back and forth was 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Say my arrogance.
It is a lot of time.
And I thought you were listening.
I was listening, I was just talking at the same time.
Motion closed.
Any other comments on Zoom in the audience? Is that Paul Spencer, like, his hand was up? I don't think he did.
No, I think he's
Yeah,
going
it
for
might-
the screen.
The seat's just adjusted.
Yeah.
camera.
All right.
Motion closed,
Motion is closed to the public.
all in favor? Alright. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I appreciate the consideration. I apologize. I had to be at a work meeting this evening. Just got back. I was listening while I was driving, and I appreciate all the conversation and the consideration that the board always gives, both, attorney and then discussing public comment. Beyond that, I have nothing else to add this evening to the meeting.
Thanks, Josh. Judy.
We basically touched on it earlier in the evening about how we are working to improve the securities of the Zoom meetings, so that what happened last week doesn't happen again. And, we are looking to hopefully go after those people. I know Luke could probably chime in better, but we have looked to identify who they are.
Does everybody understand what she's talking about?
Mhm.
Yes.
You have no idea who, no idea what happened.
Well,
We
do. I don't want to give too many details because it's gonna go under investigation, but Luke, go ahead.
The individuals have been identified by Zoom. It's a matter of whether or not law enforcement, whom have been contacted today with all the information they need to move forward with this, decide to serve the correct paperwork to Zoom to pursue these individuals. So we'll see. My suspicion is the state police will be interested in pursuing it.
Will be?
Yes.
Will be, yes.
Were they in state?
We'll keep you informed.
Oh, that would be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just asking if, because if it's out of state, it's a lot harder to do.
I actually think it's in state.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Right. Board members have anything?
I apologize for the updated phone numbers that went out, but it's one of my old cell phone numbers. My home number is correct. I apologize, and I even commented at the last meeting I didn't realize, because you called me on the other one, I didn't realize. So I'm not gonna say it now with there, but, oh my goodness gracious.
That's okay, you're not the only one.
Oh, that makes me feel a little better, but I opened my mouth about last time to let you know any of the changes, and I assumed.
Grab them before we adjourn.
Yeah. Board members? Yeah, we do have a meeting minutes here, to been done. January 8th.
I didn't find any problem, so I'll make a motion to accept them.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Again? Abstention?
Secretary should talk.
You talk.
I'll second that motion.
You didn't have anything else? I think you said everything. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good night. Good night, Lou.
Good night, everyone. Thanks very much.